Hello everybody and welcome back to Laugh Napkin, where we read stories from your favorite subreddits. And today's reading comes from the subreddit r/MaliciousCompliance. So without further ado, smash that like button to support the channel, and let's get right into the stories. This first story comes from the user Jada92, and is titled, "Was told that I was too uneducated to perform my job." When I was a teaching assistant, I used to work as a substitute teacher for very unruly classes, aka the classes licensed teachers wouldn't accept. I had full responsibility, worked all hours, and my numbers showed that my class was making great progress. I just had some bad luck that caused me not to finish teaching college at that time. Because I didn't have my license, my boss came to me one day and talked about how I was actually too uneducated and inexperienced to teach, and that I must have had someone telling me what to do behind me. I told her I didn't, but she didn't believe me and told me that she was watching me like an eagle to see if I was fraudulent, changing grades and stuff. I never did anything to my students. I'm not a cruel person, and I didn't want anyone implying that I wasn't doing my job as expected. They all got to the next year with scores higher than we would have expected beforehand. But I started to behave like a beginner student teacher to my boss only. Asked really stupid questions, like, how can I make my class quiet? I'm really too uneducated to know, so can you please help this teacher out by showing it? Knowing fully well that my formerly disruptive class wouldn't ever listen to her. I called her for everything. A parent wanting to talk to me, a kid who fell down and needed a band-aid, anything. I made sure to tell her that I was too uneducated and inexperienced to handle such a task, and I needed to observe a true pro work. My colleagues got in on it too. They started pointing out everything I wasn't allowed to do, but expected to do, and told my boss that she was being very fraudulent by expecting me to do so. In the meantime, I was discussing gamification, the need for programming in English in primary school, showing older colleagues new teaching methods and digital assistants, all the goodies. After 6 weeks, she was done. She called me to her office and apologized to me for saying that I was too uneducated and inexperienced, and how she was renewing my contract and got some budget to pay for half my studies. I was happy to tell her that I got a new job that would pay everything to get me my license, and I would get full creative freedom without being watched like an eagle. This was 2 years ago. I almost had my license, and I still work at the awesome school that hired me after the allegations of being uneducated and inexperienced at my old job. I even got a reward and a trophy from the board for doing exceptional work and obtaining goals with my students. This next story comes from the user Hooked on Phone and is titled, "Steal My Bed? Lose Your Stuff." My uni had a dorm for foreign exchange students. It was intended for short-term residency and lacked many of the amenities of other dorms. The dorm was divided into pods, each with 4 or so rooms attached to a common kitchen and bathroom. It was 4+ people to a room, no privacy, no locks, no real rules. You were assigned to a pod, but they didn't bother assigning beds, so you just took one and worked it out among yourselves. But rent was cheap, 150 euros or so local students also took advantage. Quarters were tight, but people more or less got along. However, there was one girl who was just the definition of entitled. She would buy enough groceries for a family of 4, stuff the communal fridges full of her food, then leave it to rot, and freak out at anyone who dared move her things or throw out her rotten food. She would shamelessly take someone else's laundry out of the running machines, put her stuff in the machines instead, and leave the other person's wet laundry in a heap on the floor or wherever. To make matters worse, she apparently felt entitled to the best room or bed or whatever, and would routinely move to another student's bunk, dumping their stuff in the hall. Why this behavior was permitted to continue is beyond me, but whatever, it was uni. Each pod had a resident advisor, essentially a student mentor responsible for ordering repairs and babysitting. The RA got their own room with a locking door. Our RA graduated at the end of my 3rd year and vacated a room over the summer. Entitled jerk immediately moved in. Unfortunate for me, I was assigned as the new RA. I got the news less than a week before the end of my summer session. I told entitled jerk to move out. The resident manager told her to move out. Other people warned her. Her response? "Don't any of you dare touch my effing stuff." She decided to go for a long weekend with some friends to get away from the hostile environment. Thing is, my classes were over, and I was going home to my parents for the rest of the summer. My parents lived about 10 hours away by train, and I wasn't about to drag my stuff home with me when I had a perfectly good locking room. I texted entitled jerk one last time, asked her what she wanted me to do with her things. "Don't you dare! My stuff stays." Okay, well then that seems reasonable to me. I got a couple of boxes from the resident manager, gently packed up her things, shoved them under my bed, moved my stuff in, and locked up. I got a furious text message a few days later demanding to know if I had locked her room. I reminded her that this was my room. She demanded to know where her things were. Well, you told me to leave them, so I did. Told her that she was welcome to pay for a train ticket for me to come back, unlock my room, collect her things, and get the f*** out. She declined. Told me that if I wanted to come back, I'd need to pay for my own ticket. Well, given that I did not want to come back, I passed on her offer and stayed gone for the next 4 weeks. She had to wrap up her studies with 4 days worth of clothes. Her computer was locked in my room, and as far as I know, she didn't even have a blanket and a pillow. Never saw her again. Her parents got her stuff when I returned. This next story comes from the user JackLumber86 and is titled, "Refuse My Help? Enjoy your wait." Obligatory. This happened years ago when I worked at a big box furniture store. The store was massive, with a marketplace, warehouse, and 2 restaurants. It had dozens of departments, and every employee had specific tasks. Mine happened to be cart retrieval and helping customers load their flat-packed furniture into their vehicles. One random weekday, my coworker called in sick, so I'm carrying double the workload when my radio goes off. "Customer at the exit needs help loading." Got it. I was finishing up with another customer not too far away, so I was there within a few minutes. "Hi, I'm here to assist you. Where's your vehicle?" "It's about time. I've been waiting here for 15 minutes. She hadn't been. I had just walked by there 5 minutes beforehand. "I'm sorry about that. I was with another customer. I came within a few minutes of being told that you needed help. Where's your vehicle?" "Are you saying that I haven't been waiting that long?" "No, I'm just saying that I came within a few minutes of finding out you need help." "I don't need your attitude after waiting so long. I want an apology." "Ma'am, I already apologized to you. Where's your vehicle?" "Forget it. I'll find someone else." "I'm literally the only one here that can help you." "I'll find someone else," in such a way that every syllable was its own sentence. Okay. I walked away and continued working since I was incredibly busy loading other vehicles and retrieving shopping carts from everywhere, including the occasional cart corral. 30 minutes later, my radio goes off with a slightly annoyed tone. "That customer by the exit still needs help." I offered her help, told her I was the only one to help her, and she refused. So I don't know what to tell you. Okay. 20 minutes later, I see my manager, the cashier manager, who was on the other side of the radio, and the warehouse manager talking to her. The cashier manager had called my manager and went to meet the customer. The two of them are middle-aged women, who then had to call the warehouse manager to load this large box containing a dresser. I walked past them and leaned against a post and watched. She was irate, yelling and complaining about customer service. She spotted me and scowled at me before getting in her car and driving away. I approached the managers and explained what had happened. One of them said, "We get it," before we all separated and went back to work. She had to wait over 45 minutes because she was too entitled to wait for 5 minutes. I'd like to think she learned a valuable lesson, but she probably tells a very different version of the story. This next story comes from user Stupidly Ugly and is titled, "How to Break a Dress Code." I broke the dress code at my last firm because of shoes. I got called to the carpet for wearing black Skechers to work, so I started coming in every day dressed to the nines. We're talking cufflinks, high-quality silk ties, gold-faced metal band watch, pocket squares, some of the finest bourbon wingtips you've ever laid eyes on. I got tailored dress shirts and custom suits cut for fuck's sake. It wasn't cheap. I did this every day, while making sure to casually point out that the very managers who complained about me were wearing Keds in the office. This went on for a few months. The interns and staff started dressing like me. We started comparing notes on tie knots and pocket square folds. We got high and tight haircuts with straight razor shaves. We bought Badger hair shaving brushes and eucalyptus shaving soap. The partners started getting embarrassed as we were dressed considerably nicer than they cared to. They had a big meeting and declared the entire dress code dead. Jeans, t-shirts, flip-flops, all fair game unless you had a client meeting. This next and last story comes from the user Casper Sorensen and is titled, "Won't let me have an ashtray in the garden? Fine." So many years ago, when I was around 16 or 17, my parents allowed me to smoke in the garden, but would not allow me to have an ashtray to put my cigarette butts in for whatever reason. The only reason I knew was that they did not want to destroy the aesthetic of the garden, which was already a hole, and they were pretty anti-smoking too, so that was potentially another reason. Anyway, I asked them where they wanted me to put my cigarette butts, and the only response I got was, "Put them wherever you like. We're not having an ashtray in that garden," which I believe to be absolutely comical. You literally don't want an ashtray in the garden, but you're happy to have butts strewn all over the place? Sure, that's fine. However, I'm not the kind of person to throw cigarettes on the floor. Now, I have always had a creative flair, and I thoroughly enjoy art, so I decided I was going to collect my cigarette butts in a little jar and hide that jar behind a bush, moving it at different times to lessen the chances of its discovery. I was following the rules because technically a jar isn't an ashtray. They forgot about the ashtray situation and moved on with their lives until after about 6 months of collecting cigarette butts. Reading this in my head makes it sound so gross, I'm sorry. I had collected loads. My parents went on holiday for 2 weeks, and when they came back, I had constructed a no smoking sign and a thank you for not smoking underneath it, all out of the cigarette butts I had collected. They came home to find that, and my mom let out the loudest gasp I had ever heard, and my dad chased me around the garden with a bit of wood. But that's okay, we laugh about it now. Anyway, rules should really be thoroughly thought out before they are set. And that brings us to the end of today's stories, guys. I hope you all enjoyed these stories. If you did, don't forget to smash that like button. And if you're new to my channel, subscribe for future videos just like this one. It costs you absolutely nothing to subscribe. And hey, in the future, if you want to unsubscribe, no hard feelings. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.